Sorry for some delay in the live streaming. There was some technical issue, and that's why I'm a bit late. But as I told you, we discuss one of the essays from our course Zeitgeist. As we know, Zeitgeist is the common course for English A04, and from Zeitgeist, the text we have to learn a very, very good essay by Chief Seattle. And the essay is titled The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival. So the essay, The End of Living and Beginning of Survival, comes from the second module in the course Zeitgeist. And we know that module 2 of Zeitgeist is on sustainable environment. So this essay has a lot of significance. We know that it is written in the 19th century. Chief Seattle lived between 1786 and 1866. We will look at the biographical details of Chief Seattle very soon. Understand that Chief Seattle wrote this essay, or rather gave this was of course a speech, gave this speech, delivered this speech some 200 years ago, but it has a lot of significance even today in the 21st century, because we face a lot of environmental issues. And the essay, The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival, is asking us to be more environment friendly, more eco friendly. So now we will just look at the biographical details of Chief Seattle, who gave this speech many years ago. It is good that we have leaders like Chief Seattle, because we know we have a lot of international and national leaders, but none of or most of these leaders of today do not have the very leadership qualities we expect from the so-called leaders. Now, let us understand the details of the biographical details of Chief Seattle. I'm reading from the course. We are in page number 29 of the course. Please listen. Chief Seattle, born around 1786, and he lived up to 1866, was born on the Black River near Blake Island in what is now the city of Kent, Washington. So Chief Seattle is from United States of America. So he's born on the Black River. So you have a river. Know that most of the civilizations of the world just developed, rather sprouted on the banks of rivers. And here we have to understand the fact that Chief Seattle is also born on the bank of Black River near Blake Island, which is in Washington. So his father was a leader of the Suquamish tribe, and his mother belonged to Duwamish tribe. So understand that Chief Seattle is a representative of the indigenous tribal people, tribal community of United States of America. Every country, there are indigenous tribal people, and Chief Seattle belongs to one of the indigenous communities of United States of America, and his parents are from different tribes. His father is from the Suquamish tribe, and his mother is from the Duwamish tribe. This is very important for us. Chief Seattle was a prominent figure among his people with remarkable leadership skills. So this is again very important. I told you in the beginning, we do not have good leaders, international level or national level. We have only selfish, self-declared leaders. So Chief Seattle has a lot of significance even today because he has a lot of leadership qualities. Now, let us look at some of the leadership skills Chief Seattle possesses. He earned reputation at a young age as a leader of the Native Americans and a warrior. So he was a leader of the tribal community, was also a warrior, often defeating groups of tribal enemy raiders. So this is very important. He was a warrior. He fought for his people and defeated many, and he was, of course, very famous among his community, the indigenous community, the tribal community, so also in the nearby communities. So he earned reputation at a young age as a leader of the Native Americans and a warrior, often defeating groups of tribal enemy raiders. He was tall and broad, so very, very well built physique he has, tall and broad, standing nearly 6 feet tall. So this is very, very remarkable. He is 6 feet tall, and it is said that when he addressed an audience, his voice could be heard at a distance of 1.2 kilometers. This is remarkable. Look at that. So Chief Seattle, the leader of the indigenous community in United States of America, in Washington, well built, 6 feet tall, talking in a very, very loud voice. And when he is speaking to his people, his voice is reaching to 1.2 kilometers. This is very important. And now I am asking you, my dear students, as well as my friends, speak loudly. So when you speak loudly, you show your confidence and you win your audience. So one of the very basic essential requirements or qualities or leadership skills is voice. And Chief Seattle had that. And look at that again. 1.2 kilometers distance is covered by Chief Seattle. When he speaks, people in faraway places like maybe kilometers away can listen to the very voice of Chief Seattle. That's wonderful leadership skill. He was a noted orator, very good speaker, very good orator, noted orator, and in his native language. He had ability to understand the white settlers' real intention for land grab. And now this is very important. We hear, of course, now there is a lull in real estate business, but some time ago, maybe before demonetization and before the COVID pandemic and all, the real estate business industry was very, very active, and people used to buy land, sell land. There was big business going on. Similarly, in United States of America again, the government wanted to buy the land of the indigenous tribal community. So when we discuss Robert Frost, that is the poem, The Roadside Stand of Robert Frost, we discussed the same issue of real estate business. So here again, this essay is also about buying and selling land. Buying and selling land. And we have to understand the fact that so far as the tribal people, the indigenous people or the native people are concerned, buying the land and selling the land is to them a strange idea, a strange concept. They say we can never sell the land, we can never buy the land. Why? Because we don't possess the land. The land is not ours, the air is not ours, the water is not ours. So this essay is about being environment friendly, about buying the land, selling the land, cruelty of people towards the environment, especially cruelty of white Americans on the environment, and the suffering of the native people. Native people consider the environment the soil, the earth, the surroundings, the beetle, the squirrels, the butterflies, the trees, the plants, the flowers, the eagle, the horse, the animals, everything as their brothers and sisters. They cannot just give up them. They, the plants, the animals, everything is brothers and sisters of man. But to the white American, the sophisticated, educated, the cultured, civilized American, everything is just for their well being. So they can do whatever they like. And Chief Seattle is very powerfully criticizing the attitude of the cultured white American. All this within inverted comma. Cultured, who is cultured, the educated, who is educated, sophisticated, who is sophisticated. We understand that the white Americans are not that cultured when we compare the attitude of the native people as well as the white American people. The white Americans, they just want to exploit the environment, and Chief Seattle is criticizing that. Let's come to the very biographical details of Chief Seattle again. He was a noted orator in his native language. He had the ability to understand the white settlers' real intention for land grab. Land grab refers to buying the land, real estate business, but pursued a path of accommodation with them. Despite understanding the selfish, cruel aims of the white Americans, Chief Seattle and his people didn't hate them. This is very important. So Chief Seattle, to a certain extent, is having some of the qualities of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation of India. So he just adjusted the selfish, cruel plans and deeds of the white Americans. He was baptized. This is important. So Chief Seattle was baptized Noah into the Roman Catholic Church by French missionaries in 1848. He formed a personal relationship with Doc Maynard, an adventurous entrepreneur who negotiated relatively peaceful relationship with between the settlers and the tribes. So the settlers are the white Americans, and the natives people, of course, Chief Seattle and his people. So you, when you learn about United States of America, you will understand that before the arrival of the Pilgrim Fathers. Who are the Pilgrim Fathers? The Pilgrim Fathers are the British people who come from Britain. So in Britain, there were a lot of problems like religious problems, civil war between the Catholics and the Protestants, and now that there is so much of murder and problem and chaos and mayhem in Britain. And of course, that was the time of geographical discoveries and expeditions. People like Amerigo Vespucci, like, of course, Columbus, they just go out. And again, Vasco da Gama, they are all just going out in search of new lands. And now, because of the civil war, as well as because of the problems in England, English people just come to the New England or United States of America, and the white people from England come to United States of America. So when these people from England come to United States of America, there are the native people, the Red Indians. And who are the Red Indians? The Red Indians are the very original native people of United States of America, the so-called Red Indians. And the Red Indians are different community. There are different tribal communities. Like in Kerala, of course, we have the so-called Paniyan community. We have again, right, the lot of tribal community here in India again, right? The Santhal community in the northwest. Okay, similarly, different tribal communities in every country. So the Red Indians were the original inhabitants of United States of America. So to the land of the Red Indians, there comes the white people from Britain, and they stay there, they live there, and now Chief Seattle is ensuring that there is good relationship between the native people, his people, and of course the white people. So one of the friends of Chief Seattle who just saw to it that this relationship between the white settlers and the natives go in a very healthy way is, of course, Doc Maynard. So he formed a personal relationship with Doc Maynard, an adventurous entrepreneur who negotiated relatively peaceful relationship between the settlers and the tribes. Chief Seattle died on 7th June 1866 on Suquamish Reservation at Port Madison, Washington. So this is very important. Here, right now, we understand that Chief Seattle, the leader of the Native Americans, died on the Suquamish Reservation. So we have to understand what Suquamish Reservation is. Suquamish Reservation refers to the very land, the geographical area possessed by the community, the native indigenous community of Chief Seattle. So Chief Seattle died on 7th June 1866 on the Suquamish Reservation at Port Madison, Washington. The city of Seattle in the United States of Washington, United State of Washington is named after him. So this we have to remember. We have a city which is known as Seattle in United States of America. So this city, the city Seattle is named after the native leader Chief Seattle. Now, more about the Chief Seattle. The Suquamish tribe honors Chief Seattle in the third week of August every year as Chief Seattle Days. So this is again very important. There may be question, rather internal or external examination. There can be questions, right? How do the Suquamish tribe? Suquamish tribe is the tribe of Chief Seattle, and how do the Suquamish tribe honor Chief Seattle? Every year they celebrate Chief Seattle in the third week of August, and it is known as that week. In the third week of the third week of August every year is known as Chief Seattle Days. We remember, America remembers, the tribal community of United States of America remembers Chief Seattle. Okay, now let us understand more about the very background to the lecture, the end of living and the beginning of survival, the very speech or essay prescribed for us. Chief Seattle delivered the speech presently entitled as The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival on March 11, 1854. This date is very important. Question for examination. When was the speech, The End of Living and Beginning of Survival, delivered? It was delivered on March 11, 1854. And again, remember all these dates are disputed dates because we are not sure. The very lifetime of Chief Seattle is again under dispute, but it is presumed that it could be the date. At a large outdoor gathering in Seattle, the speech was delivered on 11th March 1854. The meeting with Chief Seattle had been called by Governor Isaac Ingalls Stevens to discuss surrender or sale of native land to white settlers. So this is the immediate cause for this speech. The governor of Washington is asking Chief Seattle and his people to sell their land. So when the governor, the very name of the governor is Governor Isaac Ingalls Stevens. asks Chief Seattle and his people to sell the land, he gives this speech. The Chief Seattle spoke in the Lashut seed language. Again, important for us. Question for examination: which was the very language of Chief Seattle? Chief Seattle spoke in the Lashut seed language, and there exists various versions of the speech due to differences in translation. So this is one of the translations of the speech of Chief Seattle. There are different versions of the speech of Chief Seattle because we have many translations. Okay, and however, the authenticity of the speech is doubted as different versions of the same speech are in circulation. The translation of the speech in flowery Victorian English published in Seattle Sunday Star by Henry A. Smith, a poet, doctor, and early white settler of Seattle area on 29th October 1887 is a combination of history and imagination. So this is about different translations. So one very good translation of the speech of Chief Seattle is by Henry A. Smith, a poet, doctor, and an early white settler of the Seattle area. A second version, which appeared in the 1960s, was due to the efforts of William Arrows Smith, who was interested in cleansing the passage of its Victorian and Greek overtones. Another translation of the speech of Chief Seattle. The extract used in the textbook, that is the textbook we use, is based on Ted Perry's script made for the promotion of the environmental movie Home, which was produced in the US by Southern Baptist Convention in 1972. Presently, scholars agree that all the versions of the speech are equally inauthentic. So this is very, very important. So the very different translations and versions of the speech are rather inauthentic. We cannot, we have no authenticity as such about the very translation of the speeches of Chief Seattle. Anyway, this is a wonderful speech or essay which is asking us to be very, very environmental friendly. Now, let us just move to the last passage in the very course, which is about the very essay, very speech of Chief Seattle. The end of living and the beginning of survival has been widely cited as a powerful, bittersweet plea for respect of Native American rights and environmental values. This is very, very important. So what is the end of living and the beginning of survival of Chief Seattle about? That can be the very essence of the speech, can be just consolidated in this quotation. This speech is powerful, bittersweet plea for respect of Native American rights and environmental values. When we discuss Chief Seattle, it's good that we remember another very good indigenous activist, that is Janet Armstrong. Janet Armstrong is also one such activist who is asking the educated, the civilized, the so-called white people, the so-called settlers, to respect the native, the feelings of the very rights of the native people, not only America, in America alone, maybe all over the world. The speech achieved widespread fame due to its promotion in the environmental movement, as it lays stress on the interdependence and interconnections of the world of the living and the non-living. This is very important, very important. So this essay has a lot of significance, not only in the 19th century, not only in the 20th century, even in the 21st century, it has a lot of significant because it's asking us to understand the fact that there is so much inseparable relationship between the living and the non-living. It cannot be separated. Okay, so there is so much of interdependence and interconnection among or between the living and the non-living, the biotic and the abiotic. Non-human man, Chief Seattle reminds us, did not weave the web of life. Very important. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Non-human life too has intrinsic values, not dependent on a scale of their utility. Chief Seattle's speech places all forms of life in a network of interdependence. This is very important. There is interdependence among all forms of life. There is interdependence among the living and non-living. The idea of buying or selling land or cruelty to animals was strange to the Native Americans. In the context of symbiosis and deep ecology, the speech of Chief Seattle assumes special significance when Chief Seattle says, "The earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth." This we know, all things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. This is very, very important. Maybe we have to understand there are two perspectives: the perspective of deep ecology on one side and the perspective of shallow ecology on the other side. In uh, in deep ecology, we understand that everything in this universe, the living and the non-living, has equal significance. But in the shallow perspective, in the shallow ecology, we people, human beings, right? Human beings think that, okay, man is the center of the universe, and they say that everything, the very shallow ecology, the perspective of the shallow ecology is that everything is for man. Man can do anything. And that was, of course, the perspective of the settlers. That was the perspective of the white Americans. That is, of course, the perspective of maybe more than 90% of the people of the world today. And it is because of that perspective of the people of the world today that we have a lot of problems like global warming, climatic changes, droughts, landslides, a lot of problems like that. So we should change our perspective and we should follow the very, very perspective of deep ecology. In deep ecology, everything, living, non-living, has equal rank. Man is not superior to animals, or animals are not superior to plants or trees. Plants, trees, animals, buffalo, butterfly, bat, okay, snake, everything has equal significance. Even the rock, the stone, the soil, and the creatures have equal significance. So we have to respect whatever is around us. And such a perspective will, of course, give us maybe better world. Now the title, look at the title. The title is "The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival." End of living. Life is impossible today. Yeah, we are experiencing it. We suffer from people. We are afraid right now. We have the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, in India, in Kerala, of course, right, the condition is very worse and it's becoming ugly. So all this is a very clear indication of the fact that the end of living. Life is impossible. We do not live our life. We are just surviving. Who knows how many of us are going to survive this time, survive 2021, 2022, maybe 2023. How many knows? We don't know, because we have just destroyed the environment. We have been very, very brutal to the surroundings, and we have problems. We have all the problems I mentioned. Okay, so climatic changes, global warming, scarcity of water, and now problems like the a lot of virus problems, right? The COVID pandemic and all. So, in fact, as the title goes, it is the end of living and the beginning of survival. We are just surviving, trying our best to survive. Look around, you will see people crowding at the hospitals, crowding for vaccination. Yes, as Chief Seattle said it centuries ago, hundreds of years ago, the end of living and the beginning of survival. Now, let's come to the very speech of Chief Seattle. It's very simple, and let us just read and understand the very speech. The end of living and the beginning of survival. Anyway, before beginning the very essay, I have to tell you something about the last but fourth line. In the context of symbiosis, what is symbiosis? Symbiosis refers to living together, or rather, not just the kind of living together of maybe people outside marriage and all, right? Okay, not that. It refers to maybe interaction between two different organisms living in close physical association. Symbiosis refers to, okay, human beings, animals, creatures, plants, trees, birds, snakes, okay, everything living together with, of course, mutual respect and understanding, caring for each other. That is symbiosis. Okay, so this is the very, very perspective of deep ecology. Now, with this, we begin the very speech of Chief Seattle. It's in very simple English. It's very easy to understand. And now let us just begin. Understand that it's about the native people, the people of Chief Seattle, native people, Red Indians on one side, and the other side it's about, of course, the white Americans, the settlers. So the two attitude, perspective of the white Americans and the native Red Indians is highlighted here. Let us listen to Chief Seattle. The president in Washington sends word that he wishes to buy our land. How can you buy or sell the sky, the warmth of the land? The idea is strange to us, the very beginning. So Chief Seattle, the leader of the Suquamish tribe, speaks to his people that, governor of Washington state is asking us to leave this place. We cannot live here anymore. The governor wants us to shift to another place. The governor wants to start some developmental project here. So just like maybe when we discuss Chief Seattle, we have to remember, of course, our own Sugata Kumari, our own activists. Again, we have Arundhati Roy, the activist. Okay, then we have many other activists in India. So all these people just live their life for the preservation, conservation, protection, and safeguarding the environment. Okay, so like Subhukumari and other activists here, Chief Seattle also just asks us a question: how can you buy or sell the sky, the warmth of the land? So Chief Seattle in the very beginning tells his people that Washington, the governor of Washington, similarly the president in Washington, okay, sends word that he wishes to buy our land, the land of the native people. How can you buy or sell the sky, the warmth of the land? What is the warmth of the land? The sky. The sky is the warmth of the land. So, can you buy the land? Can you buy the sky? No. It is strange to the native people. This idea of buying and selling the land is strange to native people, the people of Chief Seattle. If we do not own the freshness of the air and the sparkle of the water, how can you buy them? Yes, we don't own the freshness of the air. The freshness of the air is not uh, it is not in fact a possession of man. We know that the air is not always fresh. We hear about pollution, and we know that the air is not fresh all the time. We know that yeah, the very carbon content in the air is increasing daily. The carbon content in the air is increasing daily. Okay, like we have right times in Delhi as well as in other metros where transport rather restrictions on using our vehicles. Why? Because there is, of course, too much pollution and there is scarcity of oxygen. Similarly, the question is, we have to remember all that at this time when Chief Seattle is asking the question: if we do not own the freshness of the air and the sparkle of the water, how can you buy them? Yes, human beings do not own the freshness of the air. Human beings do not own the sparkle of the water. And when we do not own the freshness of air and the sparkle of water, how can we buy the land or the sky? It's impossible. Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, every mist in the dark woods, every clearing and humming insect is holy in the memory and experience of my people. The sap which courses through the trees carries the memories of the red man. Look at that. This is very important. This is the very attitude of the tribal people, the very indigenous people, the people of Chief Seattle to the environment. This is what is deep ecology. This is what is symbiosis. Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. The Native Americans, the Suquamish tribe, the Kokanagan people, the tribal people in every part of the world, they consider the earth sacred. It is sacred. The earth is sacred. Every part of this earth is sacred to my people. Every shining pine needle, pine trees, look at the leaves of the pine trees. The leaves of the pine trees are like needles. Every shining pine needle, every sandy shore, you have a lot of beautiful beaches. So all the leaves of green trees and all the beautiful beaches, every mist in the dark woods. Okay, again, remember Robert Frost stopping by the woods on a snowy evening. So, mist in the dark woods, every clearing, and humming insect is holy in the memory and experience of my people. Chief Seattle says that to him and his men and women, the earth is sacred. The butterflies, the snakes, the flowers, the plants, the squirrels, the deer, the buffalo, the river, everything is sacred and everything is brother and sister. We are all members of the same family. The sap which courses, the sap refers to the very blood, the very juice, the very water, the very life force. The sap which courses through the trees carries the memories of the red man. Okay, so the earth is sacred to the native red Indians. The white man's dead forget the country of their birth and they go to walk among the stars. This is about the very technological, scientific advancement of man. The white man's dead forget the country of their birth when they go to walk among the stars. Our dead never forget this beautiful earth, for it is the mother of the red man. We are part of the earth and it is part of us. The perfumed flowers are our sisters, the deer, the horse, the great eagle, these are our brothers. The rocky crests, the juices in the meadows, the body heat of the pony and man, all belong to the same family. So this is very important. This is the perspective of the Native Americans. White Americans, the settlers in America, the educated, polished, sophisticated Americans, they forget the country and they walk among the stars. That is about, of course, all the very scientific and technological deeds of the modern man. But what is the attitude of the native people? The Native Americans, the Red Indians, never forget this beautiful earth. Okay? The earth is the mother of the red man. The earth is the mother of the Red Indians. The earth is the mother of the tribal people. We are part of the earth and it is part of us. The perfume flowers are our sisters. The deer, the horse, the great eagle, these are our brothers. The rocky crest refers to the hills, hillocks, mountains and all. And now what happens to all the hills and hillocks and mountains? With the help of JCBs, we are leveling everything for construction, for highways, for airports, for man. And now we have all these problems. We have natural disasters. Everything is just boomeranging. Okay? We have to change our attitude and we should have the attitude of deep ecology. So when the great chief in Washington sends word that he wishes to buy our land, he asks much of us. The great chief sends word he will reserve us a place so that we can live comfortably to ourselves. He will be our father and we will be his children. So this passage we hear about the great chief. We have to understand who this great chief is. This great chief is the governor of Washington. And who is the governor of Washington? We saw the name of the governor of Washington some time ago. The governor of Washington, under reference here, is Governor Isaac Ingold Stevens, the first governor of the Washington state. He was governor between 1853 and 1857. So now Chief Seattle is requested by Governor Isaac Ingold Stevens to sell the land of the native people. And he is addressing the community, the Red Indian community, the Suquamish tribal community of Chief Seattle. Okay. And this is the immediate context of the speech of Chief Seattle. So when the great chief in Washington sends word that he wishes to buy our land, he asks much of us. The great chief sends word he will reserve us a place so that we can live comfortably to ourselves. He will be our father and we will be his children. So this is about the very context of the speech. And like the very poem we discussed previous semester, that is Robert Frost's The Roadside Stand, the villagers were asked places near the city. Similarly, here the native people are offered other places, right? They are going to be shifted to some other area. So they have to sell their land. They have to give their land to the governor. That is, of course, their father. Now we move on to the next passage. We are on page number 30. So we will consider your offer to buy our land, but it will not be easy. So Chief Seattle says, yeah, we shall consider your request to buy our land, but it is not easy. We are not ready to sell our land. We are not used to selling our land because it is strange to us. So we will consider your offer to buy our land, but it will not be easy. For this land is sacred to us. So question again, why is it not easy? Why is it difficult to sell the land to, of course, the white Americans? Why does Chief Seattle say that it is very difficult to sell the land? Because the land is sacred to the native people. This is the answer. The land is sacred to them. This shining water that moves in the streams and rivers is not just water, but the blood of our ancestors. Look at that. That's very important. Okay, so the water that moves in the streams and rivers is the blood of our ancestors. If we sell you the land, you must remember that it is sacred, and you must teach your children that it is sacred, and that each ghostly reflection in the clear water of the lakes tells of events and memories in the life of my people. The water's murmur is the voice of my father's father. So this is very important. This is the perspective of the Native Americans, the Red Indians, the Suquamish people of Chief Seattle. To them, the water is the blood of their ancestors. And when they look at the very the ripples of the rivers or ripples of the waters, they see their grandparents, great grandparents, and all the people who were before them. So to them, the rivers, the animals, everything is like brothers and sisters, and it is very difficult for them to sell the land. We continue. The rivers are our brothers. They quench our thirst. The rivers carry our canoes and feed our children. If we sell you our land, you must remember and teach your children that the rivers are our brothers and yours. And you must henceforth give the rivers the kindness you give any brother. This is very important. And when we read this speech of Chief Seattle, look around, look around, look at Bharatapura, the so-called Nila. Look at other rivers of Kerala. Look at other rivers of India. We have to admit the fact that our rivers are polluted, contaminated, plastic bottles, bags, and a lot of toxic objects just suffocate the waters of our streams and rivers. And maybe it is again a saddening fact that we don't have water in summer. Our rivers are just like deserts. There isn't even a drop of water. But it shouldn't have happened. Our rivers should not have been like that if we had been more careful. If we treated the rivers, streams, and maybe the pools, lakes, and the soil and the environment like brothers and sisters, it wouldn't have happened. There would have been enough water, there would have been enough fish, there have been, of course, all creatures in our environment. Now we understand per day more than 200 creatures die out in every nation. In the United States of America alone, more than 200 creatures become extinct per day. Such a shocking data. That's it. Okay, so let us just listen to Cheap Seattle and let's be kind to environment. Rivers are our brothers, they quench our thirst. The rivers carry our canoes and feed our children. The tribal people, they used to get a lot of fish from rivers. Now we don't have rivers. I mean, I'm sorry, we don't have fish in the rivers and the lakes of our subcontinent because of pollution, because of our atrocities on the environment. Let's continue. We know that the white man does not understand our ways. White people, the settlers in the United States of America, do not understand the ways of the native people, the tribal people, the indigenous people. One portion of land is the same to him as the next, for he is a stranger who comes in the night and takes from the land whatever he needs. Very powerful, blistering attack of Chief Seattle on the white Americans. White Americans, the settlers, are like thieves. They come to the land like thieves during night and they steal, they plunder and loot, they take whatever they want. They come, the white, we know that the white man does not understand our ways. One portion of land is the same to him as the next. For he is a stranger who comes in the night and takes from the land whatever he needs. The earth is not his brother, but his enemy. And when he has conquered it, he moves on. Absolutely correct. He leaves his father's grave behind and he does not care. He kidnaps the earth from his children and he does not care. His father's grave and his children's birthright are forgotten. Treats his mother, the earth, and his brother, the sky, as things to be bought, plundered, sold like sheep or bright beads. His appetite will devour the earth and leave behind only a desert. Very, very thought-provoking ideas of Chief Seattle. It's absolutely true. The attitude of the American people, the white Americans, the attitude of the settlers, the attitude of the colonizers. This is what happened in every colony. This is what happened in United States of America. This is what happened in India. This is what happened in all the third world countries. The settlers, the conquerors, the colonizers came, plundered and looted the land. They took away whatever they wanted. And because of that reason, our environment, the earth, the cradle of life, the earth, our mother, is slowly dying and it is just becoming a desert. Now we move on to the next passage in page number 31. It is, of course, the very center of the middle part of the speech of Chief Seattle. I do not know. Our ways are different from your ways. Our ways are different than your ways. The sight of your cities pains the eyes of the red man. There is no quiet place in the white man's cities. Maybe it is true that there is no quiet place in the world right now. Even in evergreen forests, human beings just trespass. So the sight of your cities pains the eyes of the red man. There is no quiet place in the white man's cities. No place to hear the unfurling of leaves in spring or the rustle of the insect's wings. The clatter only seems to insult the ears. And what is there to life if a man cannot hear the lonely cry of the whippoorwill or the arguments of the frogs around the pond at night? I'm a red man and do not understand. The Indian prefers the soft sound of the wind darting over the face of a pond and the smell of the wind itself, cleaned by a midday rain or scented with the pinyon pine. So, this passage, Chief Seattle tells us about the affinity of the Native Americans with the environment. So the city of the white people is always chaotic. There is so much of mayhem, so much of hue and cry all the time. But the native people are not used to that. They always like silence. They love tranquility and peace. And that's just emphatically asserted here. The sight of your cities pains the eyes of the native people. There is no quiet place in the white man's cities, no place to hear the unfurling of leaves. What is unfurling of leaves? Tender leaves sprouting from branches of trees is unfurling of leaves in spring. And similarly, we can hear the wings of the insects. We also can hear the cries of different birds, but we don't have anything in the cities right now. Okay, so what is there to life of a man if a man cannot hear the lonely cry of whippoorwill? Whippoorwill is a kind of bird which is often seen in United States of America with small bill, very small bill. Okay, and they are nocturnal birds seen in night time. So these birds will twitter, cry in the night. So Chief Seattle is asking, our life will be very, very dull and boring and monotonous if we cannot listen to the cry of the birds. Okay, we will suffer from some kind of soul killing boredom if there is no bird cry, if there is no twittering and crying of the birds. Okay, the Indian prefers the soft sound of the wind darting over the face of a pond and the smell of the wind itself, cleaned by a midday rain or scented with pinyon pine. Pinyon pine refers to the pine trees. Okay, and there are some other trees. There are some trees which yield pinyon nuts, just like we know we have bamboo trees, bamboo, and we get some kind of bamboo rice from the bamboo. Okay, what you call in Malayalam mulayari and all. So maybe during some food festival you get some edible, very delicious edible items prepared from bamboo rice. So here the reference is to the nuts of the pine trees, some kind of pine trees from which we get the pinyon pine nuts. And the nuts of the pinyon pine is of course one of the staple food of the Native Americans. Like I said, the bamboo rice is again a staple food of the native people of India, or some indigenous people in India, of course, depend on the bamboo rice, and it is a staple food of these people. Similarly, pinyon pine is again a staple food of the Native Americans. Now we move on to the next passage. The air is precious to the red man, for all things share the same breath. The beast, the tree, the man, they all share the same breath. The white man does not seem to notice the air he breathes. Like a man dying for many days, he is numb to the stench. But if we sell you our land, You must remember that the air is precious to us, that the air shares its spirit with all the life it supports. And now, in this passage, Chief Seattle is asking white Americans to respect the air. The air is precious to the Native Americans. The wind that gave our grandfather his first breath also receives his last sigh. Oh, look at that. How beautiful this expression is. Okay. So a baby is born and the baby is breathing from the air. Okay. And an adult breathes from the same air. An old man breathes from the same air. And our last breath, the breath, okay, we breathe in, breathe out. Maybe when you die, you breathe out. And when you breathe out, the same air goes to the air. Okay, so this air is the very source of our life. So the air is precious to the Native Americans. The wind that gave our grandfather his first breath also receives his last sigh. So we will consider your offer to buy our land. If we decide to accept, if we decide to sell our land, I will make one condition. The white man must treat the beasts of this land as his brothers. Question for examination. What is one of the conditions under which Chief Seattle is going to sell the land? That condition is that the white man must treat the beast of this land as his brothers. This is one condition. And now, of course, in the next passage, so far, Chief Seattle was asking white Americans to be, of course, nice to the environment, the soil, the river, and all. Now, Chief Seattle is asking the Americans to be friendly, kind, and, of course, graceful and nice to the creatures, animals, birds, plants, and all. And he is criticizing the white Americans. I am a savage. Savage means uncultured, uneducated, barbarian. Okay, savage. So he is using, Chief Seattle is using irony. He is using, of course, double meaning when he says, I am a savage. Because we understand that the native people are better than the white Americans. So maybe the native people are not savages. The white people, the educated, sophisticated, polished, white people are savages because they are very cruel. They are not friendly towards the environment. They don't respect the soil. They don't respect the river. They don't respect the air. So there is irony in the words of Chief Seattle. I am a savage and do not understand any other way. I have seen 1,000 rotting buffaloes on the prairie. What is prairie? Prairie is wetland. Wetland where there is so much of grass and wild animals, especially bison and buffalo, കാട്ടുപോത്തും കാട്ടെരുമയും ഒക്കെ മേഞ്ഞു നടക്കുന്ന ചതുപ്പ് നിലങ്ങളിൽ ധാരാളം പുല്ലുണ്ടാകും. അത്തരം പുല്ലുള്ള ചതുപ്പ് നിലങ്ങൾക്കാണ് പ്രയറി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. I am a savage and do not understand any other way. I have seen 1,000 rotting buffaloes on the prairie, left by the white man who shot them from a passing train. I am a savage and do not understand how the smoking iron horse can be made more important than the buffalo that we kill only to stay alive. So here the Chief Seattle is speaking about the attitude of the native people and the white Americans. White Americans hunt animals just for fun. Native Americans hunt animals for food. And here, look at that. I am a savage and do not understand how the smoking iron horse. What do you mean by smoking iron horse? Smoking iron horse refers to the trains. Okay, we have a train, of course, transport facility, goods train as well as passenger trains. So the steam engine powered trains are referred to as smoking iron hose. I'm a savage and do not understand how the smoking iron hose can be made more important than the buffalo that we kill only to stay alive. What is man without bees? Very, very relevant question. Okay, so maybe we are being pestered by wild animals. People in the villages are pestered by wild animals, but okay, there must be animals again, otherwise life will be difficult, according to Chief Seattle. What is man without bees? If all the bees were gone, man would die from great loneliness of the spirit. For whatever happens to the bees soon happens to man. All things are connected. Very, very important. Okay? So, all things are connected. There must be bees, there must be animals, there must be men, there must be snakes, there must be worms. Everything must be connected there because all things are connected. You must teach your children. White Americans, settlers, teach your children that the ground beneath their feet is the ashes of our grandfathers, so that they will respect the land. So let us teach our children that the soil is the ashes of our grandparents, grandfathers, so that they will respect the land. Tell your children that the earth is rich with the lives of our kin. Teach your children that we have taught our children that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons of the earth. If men spit upon the ground, they spit upon themselves. This is very important. Okay? The soil is sacred. The soil contained the flesh and blood of our forefathers. The soil is the flesh and blood of our grandparents or great grandparents. So we should not spit on the earth. We should not spit on the soil. If we spit on the soil, we spit on our own faces. This we know, the earth does not belong to man. Man belongs to the earth. This we know, all things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Even the white man, whose God walks and talks with him as friend to friend, cannot be exempt from the common destiny. We may be brothers after all. We shall see. One thing we know, which the white man may one day discover, our God is the same God. This is very important. This is very, very important. Okay, so we will have the common destiny. Okay, no matter whether we are white or black, red Indians, natives, or settlers, we are going to have a common destiny. Okay, whatever happens to the earth will happen to everybody. So no disaster. When natural disasters come, it happens to all the people there. Okay, so global warming, climatic changes, all this will affect everybody in the world. So I spoke some time ago about pollution. I spoke about the carbon content in the air, and we have to understand the fact that 27-ton carbon is emitted per year from United States of America alone. 27-ton carbon is emitted from United States of America. And from the third world countries, the undeveloped third world countries, okay, per year 1.5 ton carbon is emitted. Look at what is of course, the very volume or the very quantity emitted from US alone, from United States of America alone, 27 ton of carbon is emitted. And if too much carbon is emitted, what will happen? Temperature will naturally increase, climate will change, and the ice will melt, and all the people in the world will be drowning to death. This is what is going to happen. Okay, so we have to be very careful, and because of this reason, Chief Seattle is talking to us. This we know, all things are connected like the blood which unites one family. All things are connected. Okay, and God, we have same God, we have one God. Even the white man whose God walks and talks with him as friend to friend cannot be exempt from the common destiny. We are going to have a common destiny. We may be brothers after all. We shall see. One thing we know, which the white man may one day discover, our God is the same God. You may think now that you own him as you wish to own our land. Maybe some people think that God is theirs, but you cannot own God. He is the God of man, and his compassion is equal for the red man and the white. The earth is precious to him. The earth is precious to God. And to harm the earth is to heap contempt on its creator. So if we are harming the earth, we are harming God. So let us not harm the earth. Let us not harm the earth, and let us not harm the Creator, God Almighty. The white too shall pass. Perhaps sooner than all other tribes contaminate your bed, you will one night suffocate in your own ways. So let us not contaminate the environment. Let us not contaminate the earth. If we contaminate the environment, if we contaminate the earth, we will be suffocating in our own waste. Very thoughtful, thought-provoking idea by Chief Seattle. But in your perishing, you will shine brightly, fired by the strength of the God who brought you to this land and for some special purpose gave you dominion over this land and over the red man. Okay, so white people, you white Americans, maybe you think that you have some dominion, but understand that if at all you have some dominion, that must be for, of course, something that is positive and something that is good, not to enslave, not to harm, not to enslave men, not to enslave fellow men, not to enslave native people, not to, of course, contaminate, pollute, devastate the environment. Okay, so be very, very careful about your deeds. Chief Seattle is warning the white Americans. That destiny is a mystery to us. We don't know what's going to happen to us. We are afraid. But we hope that things will be fine one day. That destiny is a mystery to us. We don't know what's going to happen to us. For we do not understand when the buffalo are all slaughtered, the wild horses are tamed, the secret corners of the forest heavy with the scent of many men, and the view of the ripe hills blotted by talking wires. Here, the reference is to the developmental projects, the telecommunication, the, of course, highways, the aeroplanes, and all that. We have all these developmental projects and developmental activities going on. Okay, but what will happen? All this will lead to the destruction of men as well as living things. Where is the thicket? Where is the thicket? Thicket is the shrubbery, small bush plants and all. Where is the thicket? Gone. Where is the eagle? Gone. So everything is becoming extinct because of the cruelty of man. Okay, we are felling trees, we are leveling hills, We are constructing, we are making highways, we are making airports, we are making harbors, and all this is for man. But understand that one day everything will devastate, everything will perish. The end of living and the beginning of survival. Okay, right now we are just surviving. Life is impossible. We don't live anymore. Life is impossible. That's absolutely true. This moment it's true. The moment of COVID-19, the pandemic, it's absolutely true. The end of living and the beginning of survival. Okay, that is the end of the speech of Chief Seattle. Now we have to come to the questions and answers. I will read out the questions and answers. Listen very carefully, understand the answers, and write down the answers in your notebook. Learn everything very well. In July, you will have your second semester examination. We are in page number 33. We have the short questions, objective type questions. Let us look at the questions. In which year did Chief Seattle make the address title, The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival? We have four options. Option A, 1866. Option B, 1854. Option C, 1887. And option D, 1845. The correct answer is option B, 1854. 1854. Second question. Which language did Chief Seattle make his speech? Option C, Lashute Seed. Chief Seattle made his speech in the language Lashute Seed. Third question, whose translation of Chief Seattle's speech was published in Seattle Sunday Star in 1887? Okay, the translation of Henry Smith. Henry A. Smith was published in Seattle Sunday Star in 1887. Henry, Henri, A. Smith, that is the name of the translator that we have in the introduction, that is page number 29, middle paragraph, center line, we have the answer, Henry A. Smith. Next question, whom does Chief Seattle mean by the great chief in Washington? Chief Seattle means the governor of Washington State, Governor Isaac Ingalls Stevens, by the great chief in Washington. I repeat, Chief Seattle means Governor Isaac Ingalls Stevens, the first governor of Washington, when he says the great chief in Washington. Next question. What does Seattle mean by the smoking iron horse? Chief Seattle refers to the trains with the expression the smoking iron horse. The smoking iron horse refers to the trains, especially the trains that work with the steam engines. Next question. To which tribe did Chief Seattle belong? Chief Seattle belonged to Suquamish tribe, Suquamish, Suquamish tribe. Next question. Why does Seattle say that buying or selling the land is strange to Native Americans? According to Chief Seattle, human beings do not possess the land or the air. We do not possess the freshness of the air. We neither possess the freshness of the air nor the sparkle of the water. And now that we don't own the land or the sky, we cannot buy or sell the land. That is the answer. We don't own the land or the sky, and we cannot sell anything that we don't own. Second question, what are the different attitudes of the whites and the Native Americans to the country of their birth? Answer we have in page 50. Page 30. Page 30 we have the answer. The attitude of the white as well as the Native Americans. Okay, I will give you the answer from the text. Thereafter, I'll explain. Page number 30, paragraph number 3. The white man's dead forget the country of their birth, and when they go to walk among these stars, our dead never forget the beautiful earth, for it is the mother of the red man. We are part of the earth, and it is part of us. Every part of this earth is sacred to the Native Americans, every shining pine needle. Okay, so the different attitudes of the white and the Native Americans. To the white, the earth is maybe something for their well-being, something for their betterment, for their living and their improvement. And they use the soil, the trees, the plants, the animals, etc. But to the native people, the earth, the living things and the non-living things, everything is very sacred. And to them, everything is brother and sister. The rivers, the trees, the animals, everything is brother and sister to the Native Americans. Whereas to the white Americans, everything is a commodity or something for the well-being of man. And white Americans believe that man is the center of the universe. Man is the center of the solar system. Man is the center of the earth. And to the native people, man is as important as every other living and non-living creature or living and non-living thing. Next question. What does Seattle say about the cities of the white man? Answer we have in page number 31. The answer, what does Seattle say about the cities of the white man? Okay. The site of your cities, page number 31, opening paragraph. The site of your cities, the site of the cities of the white Americans pains the eyes of the red man. There is no quiet place in the white man's cities. No place to hear the unfurling of leaves in spring and the rustle of the insects' wings. The clatter only seems to insult the ears. And what is there to life if a man cannot hear the lonely cry of a whippoorwill or the arguments of the frogs around the pond at night? So, according to Chief Seattle, the cities of the Americans is so chaotic, so full of hooting and sounding of the horns and all. There is no tranquility, no serenity in the cities of the Americans. Now we come to the fourth question. How does the Native American see the rivers and the earth? Answer, we have in page number 30. Okay. The rivers are our brothers. They quench our thirst. The rivers carry our canoes and feed our children. If we sell you our land, you must remember and teach your children that the rivers are our brothers and yours. You must henceforth give the rivers the kindness you would give any brother. Now we come to the next question. Fifth question. What does Seattle want the white man to teach their children? Page number 30, we have the answer. You must remember that the earth is sacred, and you must teach your children that it is sacred, and that each ghostly reflection in the clear waters of the lakes tells of events and memories in the life of my people. The water's murmur is the voice of my father's father. So, in short, what does Chief Seattle want the white man to teach their children? Chief Seattle wants white men to teach their children that the earth is sacred and children must respect the earth. Next question: what is the difference between living and surviving? The difference between living and surviving is very important. Living is a slow, gradual process. We live our life normally. We breathe air, we eat, we drink, and we live our life. Provided we don't have anything dangerous. Okay, we have a very healthy environment, very good environment, fresh air, clean water, good ecosystem, and we live our life. But we don't live our life anymore because we are uh, being threatened by many forces. Our ecosystem is not pure. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil we step upon, the soil we walk on is polluted, contaminated, and it is, of course, uh, very dangerous. There are very poisonous, very toxic materials in the air, water, and soil, and we cannot lead a normal life. Of course, we know about the COVID-19 pandemic. Similarly, we have a lot of sickness, a lot of diseases spreading every now and then, and one has to be very careful because we may die anytime. We may die maybe suffering from a disease. We may die maybe drinking some polluted water. We may die maybe when we eat something that is, of course, polluted. So now nobody lives their life. Everybody is just surviving because situation has undergone a lot of changes. Situations have changed. Times have changed. Everything is chaotic. Everything is polluted. And every living organism is surviving, trying to survive, trying to overcome. That's why Chief Seattle say that the end of living and the beginning of survival. Now we move on to the next question. Question number 7. Explain the sarcasm in the words of Seattle when he says, I am a savage and do not understand. Chief Seattle is being sarcastic when he says, I am a savage. So the very expression savage is used by the white Americans. White Americans call the native people, the Red Indians, savages. But Chief Seattle says that the deeds of the white Americans are so diabolic, so rude, so crude, so dangerous. So native people are, of course, more eco-friendly. Their attitude is kind-hearted towards the environment. So he is, of course, being sarcastic when he says, I am a savage. He doesn't mean he is a savage. He means the white people who call the native people are savages, who call the native people savage, are really savage. That is being sarcastic. Okay? There is so much of irony and sarcasm in the expression, I am a savage. Now we move to the next question. What will happen to man if all the beasts are gone? We have the answer in page number 31. What is man without the beasts? If all the beasts were gone, man would die from a great loneliness of the spirit. For whatever happens to the beasts soon happens to man. All things are connected. So if all beasts were gone, man would die from great loneliness of the spirit. That is the answer. Now we come to the next question. How does the Indian look upon water? To the Indians, to the red Indians, to the native people, the water is the blood of their ancestors. Water is the blood of their ancestors. Now we come to the 10th question. What are the conditions laid by Seattle to sell his land to the great chief? We have the answer in page number 31. Okay, so we will consider your offer to buy our land. If we decide to accept, I will make one condition, that the white man must treat the beasts of this land as his brothers. So he says that the white people should consider the animals in the land as their brothers. So also the white people should teach their children that the earth is sacred. Upon this condition, Chief Seattle may sell the land to the governor as well as the white Americans. Now we have the paragraph questions. Let us just discuss the paragraph questions right now. First paragraph question: the different approaches of the whites and the Native Americans to environment. So the speech of Chief Seattle, titled "The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival," is about the very different attitude of the Native Americans as well as the white Americans. To the Native Americans, the environment is the cradle of life. The earth is mother. The trees, the plants, the animals, the rivers, everything in the earth is brothers and sisters of human beings. So a human being has to be very, very careful while interacting with the surroundings. And the Native Americans, the Red Indians, the Suquamish people, the tribal people of United States of America, they just consider the earth sacred, and the water to them is the blood of their ancestors. So, but the white Americans, to them, the soil, the trees, the plants, the animals, everything is for men. And this attitude of the white Americans, the cultured Americans, the educated Americans, is very, very dangerous according to Chief Seattle. They have to change their attitude. The white Americans believe that they are the center of the universe. The white Americans believe that they are the center of the earth. They think that everything in the earth is for the use of man. And with that perspective, the earth is going to perish. And Chief Seattle is asking everybody to change that uh, perspective. And we must have that deep ecological perspective, or a perspective of symbiosis. Now we come to the next paragraph question. Native American criticism of the white man's treatment of Mother Earth. This essay is full of the criticism of the white Americans' treatment of the earth. To the white Americans, earth is a commodity. Animals are commodity. Trees are commodity. Plants are commodity. Rivers are commodity. They just use everything inadvertently. And the inadvertent, irrational use of the earth, the living and the non-living in the earth, will lead to the destruction of the environment and the elimination of the living and the non-living. So Chief Seattle is asking white Americans as well as people in the world to be very, very careful in our interaction with the surroundings. Now we will of course explain it with the help of the text. Now we have the next question. Comment on the passion and feelings conveyed in Chief Seattle's speech. Chief Seattle's speech, The End of Living and the Survival of the Beginning of Survival, is so passionate, so passionate. He is so full of feelings, and it is because of his feelings that he says that the earth is sacred to us. The water is the blood of our ancestors. The animals are our brothers and sisters. The rivers are our sisters. The plants and birds and butterflies are all our brothers and sisters. Okay, so from the beginning till the end, is Chief Seattle is so passionate because he is so moved by the cruelty of white Americans on the environment, and he wants white Americans to end their atrocities on the environment. And because of the urgency of the situation, he is being very, very passionate. Now we come to the next paragraph question. The interdependence of the world of the living and the non-living based on Seattle's speech. This essay is also about the interdependence of the living and the non-living. All things are connected according to Chief Seattle. Okay, man cannot live a life alone. There must be animals, there must be plants, there must be creatures, there must be snakes, there must be soil, stone, river, there must be everything. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. Okay, so we are all brothers and sisters. Okay, so Chief Seattle is speaking about the connection, like what is man without the bees? If all the bees were gone, man would die from great loneliness of the spirit. For whatever happens to bees soon happens to man. All things are connected. Okay, so there is great interconnected and connectedness, or as well as interdependence of the world of the living and the non-living. Okay, and that's very much obvious right now. Today we speak about climatic changes. We speak about global warming. And of course, because of all this, we understand that, okay, we must be very, very careful when we use water, when we use soil, when we use, of course, trees, when we use any resource. We have different kinds of resources, all right, like renewable resources, non-renewable resources. So whether it be, no matter whether it is renewable resource or non-renewable resource, we must be very careful, because man cannot lead a life alone. There must be plants, there must be creatures, there must be animals, and the interdependence of the world of the living and the non-living is very much emphatically asserted by Chief Seattle in the essay, The End of Living and the Beginning of Survival. Now we come to the essay question. We will just read out the essay question, very straightforward and textual essay question. Anybody who reads this essay can answer the essay question. Summarize the major arguments in Chief Seattle's speech. Okay, say like Chief Seattle speaks about the very reason for the speech. Governor of Washington State asking Native people to sell the land, and Chief Seattle's sorrow of the attitude of white people on the environment, and all the things he speaks. The very attitude of the Native people to environment, the very attitude of the white people to environment, and the criticism of Chief Seattle of the white people, and his conditions for selling the land. All that can be the answer to the essay question, the major arguments of Chief Seattle in this speech. Now, the second essay question. Chief Seattle's speech is a powerful plea for respect of Native Americans' rights and environmental values substantiate. Absolutely, this speech of Chief Seattle is about, it's in fact a request, it's a powerful plea for Native American rights. The Red Indian, the Native Americans, the tribal people, the indigenous people, no matter in US or any other part of the world, every part of the world, indigenous people have a right, and their rights must be respected. Their rights must be preserved. So also we must have environmental values. We should be eco-friendly. We should care for the environment, because whatever happens to the environment will happen to man. We should not contaminate, we should not pollute our environment. With that, we come to the end of the discussion of this speech of Chief Seattle. Please read the essay, read the speech of Chief Seattle, listen to my lecture, and ensure that you have a very clear idea about the speech of Chief Seattle. Thanks a lot for listening. May God bless you all. Thank you, everybody.